Hi, I'm Tony. Welcome to Sports Bike Shop's review of the HJC F100 flipover helmet. The F100 is the second HJC flipover helmet I've reviewed, and this one is significantly better than the first one. Having done a couple of 100 miles on the road, I'll run through the details and also explain how it performs. The shell for this helmet is made from a composite of materials, including fiberglass, and overall weight is very reasonable by flipover standards. This size medium weighs in on our scales at 1,632 grams, which puts it among the lighter flipover lids. That's helped by the fact the F100 has 4 shell sizes and the fact that this size medium gets a shell all to itself. That means the outside of the helmet doesn't need to be large enough to cater for anything bigger than a size medium head. We'll cover shell sizes in a little bit more detail later on. The Chinbar mechanism is released by pushing out the button at the tip of the Chinbar and then lifting. As it rises, a closed visor will be automatically lifted to make some clearance for the Chinbar to slide to the rear of the helmet just here, and now you retain full use of the visor even with the helmet in open face mode. That's one of the main appeals of a flipover helmet like this compared to a regular one where you end up with the Chinbar on the top and you can't use the visor because it's stuck behind the Chinbar. The other attractions are improved weight distribution and reduced drag compared to having the Chinbar sat on the top of the lid. If you want the option to ride with an open face helmet, a flipover like this is a better bet than a regular flip front. The Chinbar can be locked in the raised position with a red button on the left side of the lid. I found this fiddly to use while I was wearing gloves, so thankfully I don't consider it necessary as I don't see the need to lock the Chinbar at the back. It doesn't take much force to overcome that lock, and it doesn't break anything if you do force the Chinbar past the locking point, which is really good news. If you should accidentally lock it, you're not going to have the lid stuck open and you won't cause damage if you force the Chinbar over the top. When you close the Chinbar, normally it gives a noticeable click to show you that it's locked back into place properly. Ventilation for this helmet comes at the chin and up top. The chin slider allows air to come through to the eye port, and that gives a good refreshing breeze into the helmet. Sliding the top vent open exposes 2 inlets for air to flow down inside the helmet. I found this was also very effective, especially once I'd got up to around 40 miles an hour. There are channels inside the helmet in the EPS impact liner for that air to move around, and then there's a single exhaust vent at the back which is permanently open. Overall, I found ventilation with this helmet to be very good. Anyway, that was my experience while riding a Suzuki GSX S1000 GX. I guess this is now a good time to talk about noise as well. Again, this is only my personal experience on that Suzuki GX, and while riding mostly on rural roads, I didn't find the F100 to be noisy, and the customer reviewers seem to agree with me on that. The only noise complaint comes from one rider who said it was noisy with the visor partially open. I would agree with them on that, but many helmets are noisy when you ride with the visor open. Now, seems to be a good time to talk about the visor, which has 2 resting positions as it travels from open to closed. The first of those is a bit needless in my opinion, but the second is more useful. Still quite a big gap for a cracked position, but I did find it helpful when I was riding slowly. It lets quite a lot of air in, and it does get chilly in winter, but it is a handy position, especially for summer riding. Now, as that customer reviewer said, I also found there was whistling noise when riding the Suzuki with the visor open like this. Personally, I think of that as something to be expected, but I do know that some riders find that whistling noise to be annoying. Thankfully, the chin vent is effective, so it shouldn't be so important to need to have the visor cracked open. There's not a pronounced lock at the bottom of the visor travel, and the 2 lifting tabs make it really easy to lift the visor again. And then there's a Pinlock 70 anti-mist insert that's supplied in the box, which covers virtually all of the eye port, and it does allow a great field of vision in my experience. The visor is dead simple to remove and refit once you know the technique. There's a spring-loaded switch on either side of the visor. If you use a small pokey thing to lift that switch, then the visor will pivot free from its mountings. Replacing it is just a simple case of feeding the tangs into the relevant slots and rotating the visor back into position until it clicks into place. Now, one thing I discovered on the helmet that I wore for review, the visor seal at the top came into contact with the Pinlock insert as the visor swept over it, and this left some light marks on the Pinlock insert. That was just after a very limited mileage, so after thousands of miles I'd expect that marking to be quite significant. We sent that helmet back to the importer, who then replaced it with one that doesn't have this issue. That's the new helmet here, and there's no problem with this one. But if you go for an F100, or if you've already got one, I would keep an eye on this. You'll be able to see if this rubber seal moves as the visor passes over it. We've recorded some footage of the old helmet before we sent it back to the importer, so hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm talking about so you can look for that on your helmet. There's also a sun visor with this helmet which runs on a slider on the left edge of the shell. HJC aren't clear about whether this is protected against misting, but I found it would fog up when I was riding in cold conditions. It's got a good tint level and it's got a decent amount of drop too. Not everyone though wants long travel from their sun visor, as it can be uncomfortable if the bottom edge of that touches your nose. For those people, there's a travel limiter setup. On this helmet, that means there are adjusters that sit just under the side edges of the visor near the shell. There are two teeth on the leading edges of those adjusters which you can use to hook those adjusters up or down. If those two teeth are pointing to the front of the helmet, then you're limiting the sun visor travel, but if those two teeth are pointing upwards, then you've got the full range of motion available for your sun visor. Right, let's move inside the helmet. It's a quick dry antimicrobial liner that I found to be quite pleasant to wear without it being anything particularly fancy. I didn't cover tons of miles in this helmet, so I can't really comment on the long-term comfort of that lining. Now, I'll get into the reasons for not doing so many miles in this helmet when we get to cover sizing and fit. The tops of the cheek pads, they're thinned out to make it easy to get spectacles into the helmet, and I found it perfectly comfortable to fit my spectacles inside this helmet. And the chin strap, as you'd probably expect from a flip helmet of any kind, is a micrometric buckle arrangement. There are very generously sized recesses inside for speakers, which brings us neatly onto intercom compatibility. The biggest speakers available as we record this, Cardo's 45mm JBL speakers, will fit perfectly into those recesses, and then there's a flexible trim around the base of the shell, which gives you room for a clamp mount to slide around the edge of the shell. That means there's good flexibility to fit your own choice of intercom to the F100. Okay, time for sizing, approvals and pricing. The F100 comes in sizes from extra small up to double extra large. That's a range that covers 53 centimetres up to 64 centimetres. And this is one of the key facts about the F100. As I said earlier, there are 4 shell sizes. The smallest shell covers helmet sizes extra small and small. Medium gets a shell to itself. Large gets a shell to itself. And then the biggest shell is for helmet sizes extra large and 2XL. Most flip overs only come in 2 shells. There are very few of them who come in 3. So this is a key strength of this helmet. More than half of our customers wear a medium or a large, so for all of those people, the F100 will be no bigger on the outside than it needs to be. And people in the other sizes will have a shell that's designed to cover, at the maximum, one helmet size bigger than their own. The design of a flip over means they're inherently heavier than a regular helmet, so having a more compact shell will definitely help alleviate that extra weight. In terms of fit, I personally couldn't wear this helmet for any sustained period of time because it didn't suit my head shape when the chin bar was closed. The fit on all flip helmets changes when you raise or lower the chin bar, as closing it compresses the helmet at the sides. I found that effect to be more pronounced on this lid than on others, and it made the helmet too narrow for my head. It was fine in open face mode, so if I'd gone up a size, then the F100 would have been too big when I wore it with the chin bar up or back. Sometimes that's just the way it works. You've just got to admit that a certain model of helmet is not going to work for your head. No change in size is going to help. You've just got to get a different model of helmet. So I restricted myself to quick rides to assess things like ventilation and visor performance so I could do this review, and that meant I could avoid discomfort over a prolonged period of time. My advice is to make sure the helmet is comfortable for you in both modes before you buy one. In terms of approvals, the F100 meets the ECE 2206 road standard, and it's approved for use as an open face and a full face. There's no ACU gold sticker, so track use is out, but I can't imagine too many people will be bothered by that in the slightest. There's no sharp rating as we record this. If one of those pops up in future, we'll add the info to the description below. Okay, on to price. As we record this, an F100 in plain colours like this matte titanium is listed at $299.99. If you go for a graphic, then the price goes up to $339.99. If you're feeling flash and a bit flush, there's an F100 carbon, and that one costs $379.99 as we record this. That has a carbon fibre main shell, which has a big aesthetic appeal, and it also brings weight down even further. In a size medium, the F100 carbon weighs 1,538 grams. Now that's the lightest of any touring spec flip over helmet we've weighed. The only lighter flip over is a Roof Boxer 2 carbon, which is a simpler urban spec of helmet, so it isn't really a direct rival in my opinion. Okay, time to sum up. I think the F100 is a great option in the flip over category. It's got good construction quality, everything works well, and the fact there are 4 shell sizes is a real plus point. The fiberglass used in the shell means it is a bit pricier than entry-level flipovers, which all have plastic shells. Most of those tend to hover around £250 at list price, including HJC's own plastic shelled i100. Personally, I would look at spending the extra money to get an F100 because I think the quality makes that extra money worth it. That extra range of shell sizes is a factor too, as the external size is more likely to be better suited to the head inside it. Now for me, it's not possible to go for one of these helmets as the fit doesn't suit my head. That doesn't make it a bad helmet though. It's not HJC's fault that my head just happens to be this shape. If your head is more suited to the internal shape of this, then I think this is one of the best flip over options I've come across. I hope that tells you everything you wanted to know about the HJC F100, but if there is anything you'd like to ask or to add, then please pop a comment below. Thanks for watching.